Hello, class, and welcome to week one, which we're going to go over course overview and usability. We already went over the course that, I learned in the course overview in the first announcement. And this announcement will focus on week one. And so in week one, at the end of the week one, you're going to be able to identify user resistance to technology and strategies to overcome the reluctance, discuss ethical considerations when designing user interface, and we're going to have a nice case study where you get to use an automated teller machine. We talked about this during the course overview, so we'll be going back to the ATM more and more often and looking at the design of an ATM interface as we discuss usability. And again, we're discussing how users interact with with information technology. So week one is the overview and introduction to usability. Starting with just a broad overview of human-computer interaction from the practitioner and also from research. And then you'll look at usability goals and measures, usability motivations, and information technology professional goals. In chapter 2, we'll look at universal usability, addressing variations in physical abilities and physical workplaces, diverse cognitive and perceptual abilities, personality differences, culture and international diversities, users with disabilities, older and younger users, and hardware and software diversity. And I mean, I believe we talked about it, but depending on which laptop you use, whether you use a Mac or Windows, you get used to that interface, and there's definitely differences with the interfaces. Likewise, there's differences on how people perceive that interface based on their age, based on their background, their own perceptions. And so as designers and software developers, those are things that we have to address. So the required for the readings for this week are chapters 1 and 2, like I discussed, and also chapter 6 is the case study for the ATM machines. And then there's a web page introducing U.S. web design standards, and also the ACU library distance learning portal that you should be using for your research. Like I said, the library is a great resource. This introducing the U.S. web design standards. There's different design standards for for web, for Internet Explorer, for web browsers, for laptops, and so they're a good place to start as designers and developers. There's also recommended reading, user authentication alternatives, effectiveness, and usability. And then you do have the PowerPoint presentations that you can go over for each chapter. And the first discussion question, getting to know your class, it's just a simple introduction where you get to know your classmates. And so make sure, you're posting by the correct time. Your first post is on this one. By the end of the week, read and respond at least 2 members of your cohort or your classmates. And, talk a little about your name, your location, you can talk about your families, hobbies. You can talk about where you're working now or where you want to work. Anything can be a goal where you are now or in your past. So if you're not working right now, then where do you want to work? Do you want to work in development, infrastructure? What kind of languages do you like? And post a video there. In the second discussion question, we'll talk about alleviating technology reluctance. And so I think all of us face this, but there's, based on people's background and the issues we discussed, they can have reluctance to technology. You can see technology is, encroaching in our lives more and more. I know, we have verbal assistants in our house, and as an IT professional for the past few years, I've bought, Google for different organizations or different family friends, and some of them refuse to use it. They have it locked in their closet. There's always security concerns, but there's also reluctance to use technology. So the first discussion is, how do we overcome this reluctance? What's the cause of this reluctance? And ultimately, as designers and developers, what should we do to ensure that our interfaces don't meet a strong reluctance, and how can we make it easier for the users to use our interface? Then, like I said, we'll have a case study on the iterative design evaluation of automated teller machines. And so you get to read the case study and then provide some design and ethical and usability concerns, and how we should address those. And again, make sure you're using the ACU library. I said it's a great resource that you're paying for, and then make sure that you're following the requirements, including APA format, 500 words, and number of references. And you can go down and, I go straight by the rubrics when I'm grading a paper. So, make sure that you're meeting these in the rubrics, because that's what I'm looking for, that you provide 3 usability design improvements, you're discussing the ethical considerations, and then of course that it's an APA format. And then there's also a lab for interface development lab. And that's where you get to start creating the ATM interface. And like I said, we'll be using this ATM interface development throughout the course. And there's also a non-graded discussion area titled Interface Development Discussion, where you can discuss with your cohorts or your fellow classmates and colleagues, how this process is going. And again, this don't get too hung up, if you JavaScript. I work mainly in Java and C++ a little bit, and have a little bit of knowledge of Python, but you can see, we're not asking you to build an ATM machine. This is to give you some knowledge and some experience with interfaces, and to get you to start thinking about the interfaces and how, when you're designing an interface, what considerations you make. So you can see that, with the previous assignment, I believe is worth 75 points. And this assignment is worth 25 points. And the actual, the tools are only worth 10 points for the use in C++ and Python. Just don't want you to get, frustrated with the, with that lab. There's an ungraded knowledge check that'll go over chapters 1 and 2. And so you can take that, and there's no, you can take it as many times as you like, and there's no grade for that. It's just to help you make sure that you understood the week. And then you get to the summary page, and it goes over what we discussed, which is usability and the introduction for the first week. My email address is always open. Feel free to email me. I usually respond the same day. I check my email every morning. First week is a good week. There's a couple of discussion questions, so there's a little bit of work, but it's a nice overview of the course. If you have any questions, email me, and I look forward to responding to your discussions and looking at your assignment submittals. Again, if you have any questions, email me, and we will talk to you soon.